I'm going live. I hope I'm live. Hello. Good afternoon. My name's John. I'm alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous started. Well, they started writing the book Alcoholics Anonymous. 1938-39. Took about a year to write it. Written by a bunch of ex-drunks. It was screwed up with 2 cars in them. Argued very fair full stop. And, but there you go. They were skint as well. No money. This book contained what was considered by one rather famous person to be the miracle of the 20th century. Wow. That's something. And being slightly distracted on the movie. So, in this book lies the 12-step recovery program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Clear, concise instructions. The 12 steps are within the first 103 pages of the book. And each step begs a question. How did they do it? And every question is answered in the first 103 pages of this book. That's a fact. That's all I deal in is fact, no opinions. Step 1 identifies the problem. Powerlessness. Powerless. What do you mean by that? When you want to stop, can you? No. When you start, can you control the amount you drink? I'd like to think so, but no, it never was out that way. Guarantee when you'll finish? No. If you've any doubts about that, read the first 3 chapters. Because that's what those chapters cover step 1. And if that's not enough for you, go and read the stories in the back. Preferably the pioneer stories, the first stories. Unless I've changed it since I last read it. If you're still not sure, go back and try some controlled drinking. Good luck to you. You can always come back. But don't hang about here. Don't hang about here. Because it'll just spoil things for all of us. Reality of it is that your average alcoholic is an adult child. And like children always looking to get into things, and get, in a semi kind of adult way. So there you go. If you decide that you're powerless, step 2, need a power. And then, of course, these steps beg the question, who did? The people who wrote the book. And how did they discover this power? There's chapter 4. The first paragraph in chapter 4 sums up the previous 3. When you want to stop, can you? When you start, can you control the amount you drink? Can. When you're finished, can I? That's approximately what it's saying. So there you go. Step 1. I've admitted I'm powerless. Step 2. I've accepted that I need a power. Step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of that power as we understood that power. Made a decision. Makes a question, how did they do that? They took steps 4 to 9. Oh, right. So, what you have to bear in mind here is that when I was hearing this stuff, I'd been 18 months in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd done hundreds of meetings and I'd never heard this stuff before. Never heard it. That's how shockingly bad Alcoholics Anonymous is. And I'm going back 25 years. It's not getting any better. So it's getting worse. Dear God. I really pity the newcomer coming into these rooms. We've got the power of life and death over these people. And communicating this program in an accurate, consistent way is all we ask. And that's what I'm trying to do here. And hopefully everything I say you'll find in the book. And if it's not in the book, it's my opinion. You can take it or leave it. Okay, fine. So, step 3. The decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. Basic understanding. Fine. Okay, and that's a power greater than me. That's my understanding of God. I'm powerless. So, okay, fine. How do I turn my life and my will over? Step 4. Took a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. Oh, yeah. Moral inventory. Looking for the truth. Right. And in chapter 5, gives you clear-cut, precise instructions on how to write it out. You have 3 columns, A4 page, 3 columns. First column is the name of the person that I resent. The second column is the cause of that resentment. Don't have to write that. A light story about it. Just put down little what's the word? Target words or whatever they're called. And because I'm the only one who's going to read it. And in the third column, I put down the part of me affected. Or, as you say, the part of them affected. They're talking about themselves. They're not talking about us. They're only talking about themselves. I've taken up the invitation. Right. Was it my personal relation? Sexual relation? Was it financial? All of that kind of stuff. And it's all in chapter 5. So I don't need to get into any detail. You can go and look at it yourself. So right, I've had to look, I've done that, and then if I have to make a similar list, you do the columns on their own individually. You don't do them across the way, you do them down the way, because by the time you're halfway down, some will come up from the previous, and you go back and you'll start editing that, and then you'll end up sprinting it all, chopping it away. So try and discipline yourself. Do one column at a time. And once you've done that, you go into principles of life that you don't like. Rules in life. I had to ask the man what that meant, principles. You know? And rules in life that I don't like. There's quite a lot of them. The realities are good at that. I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like having to do this, I don't like having to do that. I don't like having to obey rules because I'm an adult child. And children don't like having to obey rules. It's pretty easy to imagine that. So, and so part of me affected. I'm getting a wee bit stuck on this. Getting old, 67 years of age. Yeah, what part of me was affected? Yeah, the principles in life. Sorry, the principles. And what was the other one? There was 3. Something happens when I do this. I go blank. Don't know why. I've been doing it for 25 years. Bear with me if you can. Shocking business, so it's. Yeah. Rules in life, principles. Swiftly moving on. Institutions that I resent. That's the third one. Institutions, banks, the dole, benefit services, all of that kind of stuff. Because it basically reminds me of the mess of it. So I've got them listed. I discuss it with a man, and I work out, especially from the people situation, I work out who reacted to me because of my behaviour and who acted towards me because they were just nasty people. And it's a fascinating experience. I started to see things a lot differently. And the man was guiding me. And I wasn't allowed to duck and dive. But if he hadn't, all of that stuff. He wasn't having that. He was quite firm and quite strict about it. And wow. And much the same situation with the institutions and the rules of life that I didn't like. And bearing in mind, of course, you're talking to an adult child. I had the mind of a 10-year-old going into that man's house. It was quite astonishing. Quite astonishing. So, yeah, I have to have a look at it. Where going back to the list, I resolutely setting aside the wrongs of others, because I've worked out with a discussion with a man the wrongs of others, and hopefully at some point I'll be able to forgive them. So, setting aside the wrongs of others, we resolutely looked for our part. Where were we at fault? Who would be on? What part did we play? And wow, I started to see why people reacted towards me, because I was a complete pain in the backside. I was an adult child, and I was acting like an adult child, especially when I was drunk. Happiest guy in the world when I was drunk, and just a nuisance, And I didn't know. You see, I didn't know. It really hurts me when I think of that guy, because he really needed help, and help wasn't there, especially as a child. I resented my mom. She was always angry with me. She was always hitting me, shouting at me, screwing her face up. My father died when I was 10 years of age. He died drunk. I didn't know what was going on. Didn't have a clue that I was inheriting an awful lot of his stuff. And she was going to beat my father out of me. Any excuse, rationalisation and justification. Wow. So yeah, my mother was the first on the list. I resent my mother. And rightly so. But the interesting thing about it is what it taught me was that I don't love my mother. I never have loved my mother. She never taught any of us love. She didn't have love in her. I don't remember a tender moment. I don't ever remember a tender moment, maybe once. And it's such a rare thing that I'm not even sure if it happened, that kind of thing. So I've got stuff going on here that's kind of distracting me. Sorry about that. I'll have to attend to this distraction. I don't know. This is a waste of time. I'm going to start again. I'll be back.